The acrid smell of smoke and twisted metal still burned in my nostrils as I stood there in the glaring lights of the Voss Dynamics boardroom, surrounded by hundreds of suits and skeptical eyes. Harmony Voss, the woman I had dragged from the burning wreckage of her car just hours earlier, gripped the podium with white-knuckled hands and dropped the bomb that changed everything forever. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the vote on the merger, I want to introduce someone very important to me, and to this company. This is my wife, Cadence Harlow. The room erupted in murmurs, camera flashes popping like gunfire. My stomach plummeted. Wife. We had spent 2 years burying our relationship so deep that even our closest allies believed we were nothing more than occasional professional collaborators. In the cutthroat biotech arena of San Francisco, where Voss Dynamics fought daily for survival against hostile takeovers and regulatory knives, any hint of personal vulnerability was suicide. Yet here she was, turning our secret into a public shield, or a noose. My mind flashed back to the highway at dusk. Rain had hammered the windshield as I tailed Harmony's sedan after another brutal argument about the merger vote. Victor Lang, the board's most vicious shark, had been circling for months, pushing a deal that would strip Harmony of real control and hand it to his European backers. I had warned her the numbers smelled like a trap. She had accused me of letting fear cloud my judgment. Then the truck appeared out of nowhere, sideswiping her car and sending it flipping into the guardrail. I didn't think, I just acted. Brake screeching, I blocked the lane, grabbed the tire iron from my trunk, and smashed the driver's side window. Flames were already licking the engine when I dragged her limp body free. She had coughed my name once, eyes wide with shock and something rawer than gratitude, before the sedan exploded behind us. Now, standing in a room that smelled of expensive cologne and panic, I forced my face into a calm mask while board members stared. Harmony's voice never wavered. Cadence isn't just my partner in life. She's the strategist whose legal foresight kept us 3 steps ahead of Lang's last 3 attacks. Her presence here tonight is proof that Voss Dynamics is stronger united, personally and professionally. She extended her hand. I took it, feeling the tremor only I could detect. The vote passed in her favor by a razor-thin margin. Applause was polite, but the undercurrent of whispers was toxic. In the private elevator descending to the parking garage, the mask shattered. What the hell was that, Harmony? I hissed the moment the doors sealed us in. She leaned against the mirrored wall, suit sleeve ripped from the crash, bruise blooming along her cheekbone. Necessary, she said flatly. Lang had photos from Napa. He was going to drop them tomorrow morning and paint me as distracted, unstable. I flipped the script. We control the narrative now. Her logic was ice-cold, cause and effect perfectly chained. Leak threat equals public declaration equals unified front equals preserved power. But the effect on me was a fracture I could already feel spreading. My own consulting firm relied on discretion. Clients paid premium for Cadence Harlow, the independent fixer, not the CEO's secret wife. We reached her penthouse overlooking the bay just as the first news alerts hit. Voss Dynamics CEO reveals surprise marriage after dramatic rescue. I poured 2 whiskeys with shaking hands. Harmony pulled me close on the leather couch, her fingers tracing the soot still smudged on my collar. I couldn't lose you twice in one day, she whispered, the words soft but the timing strategic. Even in that moment of supposed romance, I tasted the calculation. Our love had begun at Stanford, 2 driven women dissecting case studies until dawn, stealing kisses in the shadows of the law library. Back then ambition had fueled us. Tonight it felt like it was devouring us whole. By sunrise the media swarm had tripled. I watched from the balcony as reporters shouted questions about our whirlwind romance. Harmony stood behind me, arms around my waist, but her eyes were already on her tablet, scanning board reactions. We ride this wave, Cadence. Together. I wanted to believe her. Yet the first crack had already formed. She had made the decision without warning me, trading our privacy for survival without asking if I was willing to pay the price. The next 48 hours blurred into a gauntlet of damage control. My phone vibrated non-stop. Clients demanding explanations, old Stanford contacts sending cautious congratulations laced with curiosity. Harmony moved through it all like a general, scheduling back-to-back calls while her personal stylist transformed the bruises on her face into a story of resilience. The optics are gold, she told me over breakfast in the penthouse. The crash humanizes me. The marriage stabilizes the board. Cause and effect, cadence simple. But nothing felt simple when Victor Lang's team leaked a carefully edited video of us leaving the boardroom. My hand in hers, captioned "Power Couple or Desperate Distraction?" I met Lang for coffee that afternoon at a neutral cafe near the Embarcadero, a calculated risk I hadn't cleared with Harmony. He was 60, silver-haired, and smiled like a man who already owned the room. "Your wife's move was bold," he said, stirring sugar into his espresso. "But bold doesn't equal smart. The merger still gives shareholders 23% upside. Refuse it and the stock tanks when the FDA delays hit next quarter." His logic was sound. I had run the same numbers myself in secret. Yet admitting that out loud would betray the woman who had just publicly claimed me. I left the meeting with a headache and the sick realization that Lang's offer included a quiet seat on the new board. For me, not Harmony. When I returned to the penthouse, Harmony was waiting, tablet in hand, replaying the cafe security footage her security team had pulled. "You went behind my back." Her voice was quiet, dangerous. I didn't deny it. "You announced a marriage without asking if I wanted the world to own me. We're even." The argument escalated fast. Years of buried resentment spilling out. She accused me of prioritizing my independent brand over our shared future. I accused her of treating our love like another asset to leverage. By midnight we were in separate rooms, the silence heavier than any shouted words. The cause was clear. Each of us had chosen self-preservation the moment the spotlight hit. The following morning the board convened an emergency session. Lang proposed an immediate vote on the merger, citing instability in leadership. Harmony countered with data I had prepared months earlier. Charts proving the deal would gut R&D. I sat beside her in the front row, ring glinting under the lights, every eye measuring how much influence I now held. When the vote deadlocked, Harmony looked at me, a silent plea. I could have spoken up, tipped the scales with the off-the-record intelligence I'd gathered from Lang. Instead I stayed silent. Let her feel the weight of the choice she had forced on us. The meeting ended without resolution, but the damage was done. Two directors who had been neutral now eyed me with open suspicion. One whispered to another, "Wife or spy?" The effect of her announcement was rippling exactly as I had feared. My presence now poisoned every room. That night Harmony found me on the balcony, city lights glittering below. She didn't apologize. Instead she laid out the next move. I would formally join Voss Dynamics as Chief Strategy Officer. Salary triple my current earnings, title that screamed power couple. "It's the only way to silence the whispers," she said. I stared at her, the woman I loved, and saw the calculation behind the tenderness. Accepting meant surrendering the independence I had spent a decade building. Refusing meant weakening her in the very boardroom she had just dragged me into. Love or ambition, pick one, the moment demanded. I told her I needed time. She nodded once, but the distance between us had already grown by miles. 3 weeks later the FDA delay Lang had predicted slammed the stock. Voss Dynamics lost 9% in a single trading day. The board demanded answers, and Harmony's new narrative, that our marriage represented stability, began to crack under scrutiny. I watched her in the executive conference room, fielding questions with the same steel she had shown the night of the crash, but I saw the exhaustion in the set of her shoulders. Late that evening she came home and collapsed on the couch, head in my lap for the first time since the announcement. "They're circling," she whispered. "Lang's offering private buyouts to key shareholders." Her voice carried the quiet fear she never showed in public. In that moment the romance flickered back. Two women who had once stayed up all night rewriting business plans now facing an enemy that wanted to erase us both. Yet the very next morning she asked me to attend a closed-door meeting with Lang's faction. "I need you to read the room," she said. Translation: use the trust one had built during my secret coffee with him to extract information. I went. Lang was smoother than ever, offering me a 7-figure consulting retainer if I quietly advised Harmony to accept the merger. "She listens to you now," he said with a wink. "Wife privilege." The implication made my skin crawl, but I smiled, asked the right questions, and walked out with the name of the European bank funding his play. I handed the intel to Harmony that night over dinner. She kissed me in genuine gratitude, the first real kiss since the crash. For a few hours the old fire returned. We laughed about Stanford days, planned weekend getaways we both knew we wouldn't take. Cause and effect. My small betrayal of Lang bought us breathing room and reminded us why we had fallen in love in the first place. The breathing room lasted exactly 9 days. A tabloid dropped leaked emails suggesting Harmony had known about the truck incident in advance. Pure fiction, but the damage was instant. Stock plunged another 12%. The board called an emergency vote on whether to replace her as CEO with an interim. I sat in the gallery watching her fight for her life with slides and numbers I had helped refine. When the vote tied, the chairman looked straight at me. Mrs. Harlow, as Chief Strategy Officer and spouse, do you have anything to add? The room waited. Harmony's eyes met mine, silently begging. I stood. My voice was steady as I recited the legal risks of removing her mid-crisis. Lawsuits, talent exodus, investor panic. The board voted to keep her. She won. But the cost was immediate. 3 directors who had supported her now saw me as the puppet master. That night she thanked me in the car, hand on my knee, but the thank you carried an edge. You saved me again, she said. I heard the unspoken addition. But at what price to your own name? The price arrived in the form of a quiet dinner at the home of board member Eleanor Park, the one holdout who still believed in Harmony's vision. Eleanor was 70, sharp as ever, and had known Harmony since her first internship. Over salmon and Chardonnay she asked the question I had dreaded. Is this marriage real, or is it the cleverest hedge I've ever seen? Harmony laughed it off with practiced charm. I couldn't. The lie sat in my throat like glass. Later in the town car home I told Harmony the truth. I was tired of performing. Every time I speak in that room, I lose another piece of the woman you fell in love with. She stared out the window at the passing lights. Then maybe we both have to lose pieces to win the war. The cold logic of it chilled me. She had already decided the company mattered more than the version of me that existed before the crash. 2 days later I made my own cold decision. I met Lang again, this time at a private club in Napa, the same place our leaked photos had come from. I told him I could deliver the board votes he needed if he guaranteed me the strategy chair in the merged entity, and kept Harmony on in a ceremonial role. The betrayal tasted like ash, but the cause was survival. If Voss Dynamics fell, so did my future with or without her. Lang smiled like a shark tasting blood. I always knew you were the smarter half. I walked away with a signed term sheet in my briefcase and the sick knowledge that I had just traded the woman who called me wife for a seat at a different table. That evening Harmony greeted me with champagne. The board had reversed course again. Lang's support had mysteriously softened. She never suspected me. We made love for the first time since the announcement, slow and desperate. The city lights painting our skin in gold. In the afterglow she whispered, "We're going to make it." I held her tighter, knowing the term sheet in my safe would explode everything the moment I chose to cash it in. The fracture between love and ambition had become a canyon, and I was the one who had widened it. The canyon cracked open at the annual shareholder gala 2 weeks later. Crystal chandeliers, 500 guests, and Victor Lang standing at the podium as surprise co-host. He praised Harmony's personal courage, in the most condescending tone possible, then announced that preliminary merger talks had resumed, with full support from key insiders. The room applauded. Harmony's smile never slipped, but her hand found mine under the table and squeezed hard enough to bruise. I felt the question in that grip, "Did you do this?" I didn't answer. Later in the powder room she cornered me. "Tell me you didn't." I met her eyes in the mirror. "I did what you taught me, cold decisions for survival." The slap she delivered was quiet, almost gentle, but the look that followed was pure devastation. "I saved your career the night of the crash. You just ended mine." Security escorted us out a side door to avoid the press. In the limo she stared straight ahead, tears cutting tracks through her makeup. "You were supposed to be my wife, not my executioner." I wanted to explain that Lang had promised her a soft landing, that I had negotiated the best exit package possible. The words died in my throat. Cause and effect. My ambition had finally mirrored hers exactly, and the mirror showed a monster. We didn't speak the entire ride home. When we reached the penthouse she packed a bag in silence. "I'll be at the Napa house. Don't follow." The door closed behind her with the finality of a gavel. The next morning the board voted unanimously to accept the merger. Harmony resigned before they could force her out, citing personal reasons. My name appeared nowhere in the official statements, but everyone knew. Clients began canceling. My own firm's stock, if it had been public, would have tanked. I sat alone in the penthouse that had once felt like ours and realized the irreparable loss. Not the company, not the money, but the last remaining thread of trust between us. Love had not conquered ambition. Ambition had simply changed clothes and kept walking. I found her at the Napa estate 3 days later, standing on the terrace overlooking the vineyards we had once dreamed of retiring to. She didn't turn when I approached. The bruises from the crash had faded, but new shadows lived under her eyes. "You won," she said quietly. "Lang offered me a board seat with no real power. I took it. Congratulations, Cadence. You played the game better than I did." I told her the truth I should have admitted months earlier. I had leaked the votes to protect the version of us that still believed love mattered more than the next deal. She laughed once, bitter and broken. Then we both lost. We sat on the terrace until the sun dipped behind the hills. Two women who had once pulled each other from literal fire, now watching the empire we built burn from a distance. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. The touch was familiar and foreign at once, still warm, yet stripped of the illusion that either of us would ever choose the other over survival again. The media had moved on to the next scandal. The board had their merger. And we had the quiet wreckage of a love that had survived everything except our own ambition. As the stars came out over the valley, I realized the final brutal truth. Every step forward we had taken together had demanded a piece of the other we could never get back. The woman I saved from the burning car had saved her company by claiming me. The wife she introduced to the world had repaid her by ensuring neither of us could ever be whole again. In the end, was Harmony's announcement an act of desperate love, or the most elegant betrayal of all? True or false?